So Duncan, welcome to the next episode of the podcast Vārtalāap.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so I will tell the basic idea of the podcast. Like I like conversations, and what I think is lacking in the Indian space is like the flow of conversations and the actual value they give. So like I think I can make a difference about this thing. I can make it more valuable by asking right questions and just interacting more and not making it as an interview. So
Okay.
let's see how I will do. So Duncan, like if I wanted to start with how Deadpool is Marvel Jesus, but we can like do it after the your intro.
Sure.
So like, what are you doing, man, right now?
Yeah. So I'm Duncan, and what I like to share about myself is that I am a perspective maker and also a climate action engineer. So I kind of have two things that I'm aiming for right now. The first one being a maker, it's kind of broad, but it's essentially anyone who puts their ideas, their art, their inventions out into the world. Even making a podcast makes you a maker.
Yeah.
And I think I already kind of hit a lot of the marks there because I do a lot with 3D printing. I like to plan a lot of projects. I recently put up this calendar wall behind me so I could plan out some of those projects. Try to do something on like a monthly
Yeah, do
basis.
tell me more about it later.
Okay. And then, yeah, the other thing is I really want my life's work, my professional work, to contribute to action against the adverse effects of climate change. So I'm really interested in learning more about engineering and environmental science so that I can do work that benefits that field.
Cool, cool. So like, what will you say to the argument like the climate change is not real?
I would definitely want to listen to how people reach that conclusion. I'm actually reading a book right now called How to Have Impossible Conversations. And it really aims to kind of break down people's beliefs and first listen to them and then understand how they got to their conclusions, their beliefs, their values. So I think it's definitely a valid stance to say or to be at least be weary about like whether climate change is happening. Um, but I think if I were having a conversation with someone that said it's not real or is not really convinced, um, I would ask them, what evidence is there to kind of back up that belief? Do we have evidence out there that says there's not climate change happening? Um, because now I think in an actual conversation, I wouldn't want to present like evidence to make them change their mind. That usually doesn't go very well in conversations,
Yeah, yeah.
but
They argue a
from
lot, I guess.
yeah, it creates a space for argument. But I think for me is I have seen the evidence that we are recording higher and higher record temperatures every year, um, and also just thinking about the way weather was during my childhood, even just 10 years ago. I've noticed that the summers are hotter and the winters are colder, and those are characteristics of a rising global average temperature. Um, so it's definitely a difficult conversation. It's one of those can be a heated conversation, especially when it gets tied to right now in the United States. The political climate is heated
Yeah,
because of our upcoming election, and climate change is one of those big topics that we have one side that kind of claims to be a little bit more for climate change, one more against it. Um, so I think ultimately I would just want to understand because I think it's important to, everyone has their beliefs. It might be rooted in evidence. It might be rooted in nothing rational, really. But I think we learn more and we connect with others more when we try to find out, okay, I hear that you believe this thing. You believe that climate change is not real. I'd love to hear why, because maybe I'll learn something from it. Or maybe I can teach you something that I know.
yeah. So like basically, why I entertain this question like climate change may not be real because personally I think there is only one side which is shown in the like the textbook which we have read from the starting, like it is something which is happening, and it may
Hmm.
be, but like again there are some powerful kind of people who do say it actually is not real. So like I like the idea and their pointers which they put out, like they are interesting sort of, because if it that happens to, there can be stuff which we don't know about. Like for example, there is Dan Pena, if you know.
Oh, sorry, what is it?
If you know Dan Pena,
No,
I
I
don't know
don't.
if I'm pronouncing his name right, but he said he got access to like some facilities in the Arctic Circle, and basically they said it's not real. So like
Hmm.
it's on the table to discuss. I think that. And secondly, like for example, they say our population is real. Uh,
Mhm.
Personally, I think that many people do think it may be real because, like in India, there are many peoples which come for opportunity in cities. So if you look at cities, it is a real problem. But if you look at like villages and where people are like satisfied with their living conditions and etc., like they have large areas of land, and we we don't see overpopulation. So like it's a up down for me.
I agree. That is something that's difficult to see unless you're maybe someone's presenting data to you that would give you an idea. But like I think about like I recently flew to Norway, and anytime I fly in a plane, whether it's to other countries or just within the United States, it really gives me and it reminds me how big the world is. And I think about
Yeah,
makes me think about resources and population and spreading people out. And it sometimes that makes it hard to believe that something like overpopulation could happen. But I also know resource management in terms of agriculture and everything that backs up agriculture. I can also see how it would be very difficult to, as the population increases, you have to increase the output of resources too.
yeah,
So I would want to see more data on it, but I think, um, just if I had to say something now, it would be, I think it's plausible, but also the world's a big place and we have a lot of resources. So
yeah. So I don't want to touch this subject, but you have elections in like November, I guess.
yeah, yeah, I think November. It's usually around November 8th. Um,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, because things are pretty heated there right now. And
yep, they
after
are.
the results of last election too.
Yeah, definitely. Um, it's been a lot on my mind, especially as again I'm reading that book about having those difficult conversations, and
Yeah.
one of the most common ones is when people you talk to someone who supports former President Trump. Personally, for me, like I've never aligned with him and his campaign. Um, and it always kind of has been baffling to hear people that I spoke to someone recently who said that he's going to save the country. So it's
Okay.
really interesting because it's totally opposite idea from what I think and what I've gathered.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people immediately get angry when they hear an opposing view and they want to begin an argument. Um, but I'm glad that I can at least just listen and say like, oh, that's interesting. I'd love to hear more about why you believe that because maybe you can teach me something I didn't know.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I personally believe that you should consider everything and believe nothing. Because once
Hmm.
you believe, you cannot entertain any idea and put on your table to like understand it and etc. So like you form your belief and then everything is a wall to you. Like no new information can be like understood by you.
Right. Well, and I think we're inherently going to have beliefs, and I think it's important to have those beliefs because I often I think I go a little bit too far in that pattern that you described, which is that I like to consider both sides so much that I never even
Okay.
get to choosing a side.
Okay.
So I think it's important to have those beliefs and maybe choose one, but like you said, always be open to the new
Yeah.
information so that like, oh, maybe I learned something that makes me change my belief. And yeah, I think it's good to be open and malleable in that way.
Yeah. So like, tell me, how is your life in US? Like, which state are you from?
I'm in Indiana, so I'm in kind of the center of the country near the Great Lakes.
Okay. Is it like, how far is it from Texas? Because like Texas is the south of US.
Yeah,
Indiana.
I'm trying to think of how to quantify how far it is. It's at least 3 states away. It would
Okay.
probably, if I wanted to hop in the car and drive to Texas, it would take probably 10 to 12 hours, is my guess.
Okay.
So
So
it's
like,
pretty far.
yeah, I get it. Like there are many states. So 45 states, right? Or
We
48?
have 50 total states. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, these are represented by the stars on the flag, right?
Yep. That's right.
Nice, nice. So, like, tell me, how was it growing up? Because I think it's my first interaction with, like, someone international on my podcast. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess for me, well, so growing up for me, I lived with um, my parents and my younger sister. And eventually my parents split. So most of my life, I've just lived with my mom and my sister, and then occasionally visited my dad. So
Okay.
I lived in a very small town growing up. So I had like one friend who lived in my neighborhood. So we kind of had just kind of one person that we would hang out with growing up and socialize with. Um, Went to a very small school, and school was kind of the basis of things. There were some activities that I would do in the community, like Boy Scouts, and that was kind of a way to teach, growing boys like certain skills, especially around like camping and wilderness, being outside.
Yeah, yeah.
And also,
Boy Scouts is very interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I would say up until probably my teens, it was much of that small town life, kind of mainly being in school, sometimes taking trips to go see family in other parts of the country. I have family that are more on the East Coast, closer to Washington, D.C., the capital. So I've taken long drives out there occasionally. Um, Once I got into high school, like our last 4 grades of public school, I got very much into music, and I think
Okay.
that was really my creative focus for a long time, and that's where I made a lot of the friends that I still have now, like friends of 10 years or more. Um, I played mostly brass instruments, primarily French horn. Played some variations of French horn in different groups, but I at one point I was really focused on studying music and going further with music. And that was kind of the community I built around myself. So
Okay.
life for me was very much around like, um, yeah, the people I knew and the friends I made were also musicians. So we had different, I lived kind of far from the city at that point. But sometimes we would go into the city for performances, and um, yeah, I guess that's one thing I could talk about more is like I think probably where most of the US population lives in suburbs, so like just outside of cities, to the point where like you'd have to drive into the city to like go to an event or a concert or performance, whatever. Um, and that's interesting because you kind of have to drive to get everywhere. Um,
Yeah, there is a thing with suburbs. Like, it's made for cars, not for people, right?
it very much is. And I
Okay.
don't think I realized it so much growing up, but now that I'm an adult and I'm thinking about, how I want my life to be and the environments I want to be in. I recently traveled to Norway and walked and took public transport everywhere there. And then I came back to the United States and I was very disappointed with how much I had to drive everywhere. Um,
Yeah.
like I can walk outside and take a walk down the street, but like it's not really, it doesn't really feel safe. It doesn't feel like I can get anywhere. Um, yeah, that's definitely a big part of growing up in the United States is growing up in that car centered infrastructure, um, and kind of just being used to the fact that it's like, well, I might have to drive a half hour to get somewhere and then figure out how to park there. And, and in the city, maybe you just have to walk there or take a bus.
Yeah, because I guess suburb is a recent concept which was made primarily to serve cars, and like cities even existed when there were no cars, and like people used to walk and places, and like there was a community and community events, and like people feel connected and etc. And like there is whole conspiracies and lobbies around this topic, but I guess that's another
Yeah.
topic. Yeah. So tell me, like, what's your creative procedure? And is that the lightsaber behind you, which you made?
Yeah. Yep. Wait, I'm mirrored. So hold on. Yes, right
Yeah, yeah,
here. Yeah, there it
yeah,
is.
yeah.
Uh,
Also tell me about it.
yeah. So, what do you want to hear about? Just my creative process first. You want to hear
Like,
more of the?
I read many ideas which were there in the cohort which we had, but like there were like two types of or three types of categories. One was AI, second was like to document and stuff, and third was like different for like there were in total two or three maybe podcasts, and like your lightsaber building thing was one of them. And so like how did you choose this? Like I guess it was easy for you considering the fact that you actually like to make stuff. And what went behind like how did you design it and all the creative process? And I guess 3D printing did help you because I also wanted to get into it around 5 6 years back, but I didn't. And for that I learned the whole tinkercad and fusion 360. So like I also have done many things, but yeah, do tell me.
Okay. Yeah. Um, I think what most of my projects have come off, they've been inspired by something in popular culture. Um, Many of it comes from, I'm a big fan of Star Wars and Marvel, really anything in the science fiction or action realm of the film genres, but also
Okay.
in like books and any type of media. Um, but yeah, for this lightsaber project, it's not my first lightsaber. I've made a total of 7 over the last 7 years. And the first one was purely inspired by, it was actually a Star Wars book that I was reading. And I think it was as simple as like, oh, this sounds really cool. And I had also seen online on YouTube someone else making one. So once I had like the idea from the book and then the kind of that seed of reality where someone like, oh, you can actually make this real if you want
Yeah,
to. That's when I
it
was
was
like,
a
well,
light bulb event. Like
yeah,
something
yeah,
switched on.
right. So it's like, why don't I just put it together? And I think the barrier that I had to overcome with that first lightsaber and with this last one was, um, you're not always going to know how to do something. Um, it's almost always you're going to figure out and learn process.
Yeah,
So for me, I think I remember having that initial like, oh, well, I don't even know how this is going to work, so I'm not even going to start it. And once I got over that, and it's like, well, if I just start it, then maybe I can figure it out, and that's what I did. So yeah, it starts at that idea, and then realizing that, okay, I'm gonna I'll have a plan, I'll have a general plan. Like I can do some sketches, I can think of like, oh, what materials I'm gonna use. But for the most part, you're gonna have to learn things as you go because there will be questions and problems that come up in the process that you didn't even think of.
Yeah.
Um, and they don't present themselves until you start working on it. And that's hard because I think, especially in our education system in the United States, there's a lot of expectations to just know something. There's not a lot
Yeah.
of emphasis on the learning process and making mistakes and failing and then succeeding. So it's really hard to work
Yeah, it's a
in.
general problem, I guess,
Yeah,
because Indian system
mostly
is
that
also
too.
basically a Western concept. We used
Okay.
to have gurukuls, but like the thing with Britishers, they destroyed it. So like, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Um, So yeah, I think I guess going to like the most recent lightsaber, it was an idea that I had about a year ago, and again, it was from seeing because I know I shared clips from the Star Wars animated series where I had like seen that visual idea, and at one point, I just kind of had a vision for how it could work. I imagined like these, I could just see gears in my head, gears turning that brought the pieces
Yeah,
together.
for the self assembly, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, so the whole idea was to have separate pieces that are on a track, and then something could turn gears to make them come together. And I haven't gotten there yet, because I
Yeah.
will say for this project, like it got very close to finishing, and what definitely wasn't the full like self assembly that I wanted it to be. And I'm still planning on finishing it. I haven't worked on it yet. Um, but yeah, I think again going back to like just the general creative process, it's like the idea, getting started, the general planning, and then just it's really just working through those problems and solutions bit by bit until you get to a point where you decide, okay, this is it, this is done. Maybe it's not like perfect, but I'm okay to call it done. That's another part of it too, is like kind of getting past perfection or beliefs around perfection and maybe valuing like, oh, this is good enough or this is where it needs to be. I can move on to the next thing.
So yeah, basically, tell me if I'm wrong. So in summary, you get an idea and you just pursue it long enough to achieve it.
Pretty much, yeah. I think that's a great way to summarize it.
Yeah, because if you do believe in the idea itself, you will pursue it up to the mark. Like you will solve problems around it, and like you will achieve it. And based on how difficult it is in the starting, it may take like long time to achieve it.
Definitely, yeah. Because you can try to plan out. I've had projects where I tried to plan out every stage of it, and there's always something that surprises you. It always takes longer than you expect it to. So
Yeah, yeah. I guess you should like develop an ambitious idea and then work on it in the first principles.
mhm.
Like it's very easy to like amend it that way.
Right, right.
Yeah, because like building a house, you first have to lay down the foundation. You cannot build the roof.
Yep,
And because
exactly.
in stages we can do that, like planning the stages,
Yeah, yeah.
and we can't skip any stage.
Right.
So tell me like what got in how do you started 3D printing? Like it inspiring from something and then you got it, like, or something like gifted it to you, or like I see many people getting it from a giveaway because they cannot get it from themselves, etc. Like what how you started 3D printing? Because it's uh, I think I am very fluent in technology. I don't think it is a big deal. But like for a grandpa who is around 70 years, he will definitely believe it. It's a very innovative because it's basically 3D printing itself. Because on the paper it's 2D printing or like black and
Mhm.
white or like colored, and you can get into glosses and stuff. But like 3D printing is something else. like creating from nothing, because CNC is also like subtracting and you know it, because like it will be a block of wood and then it will be reduced into some sculpture of sorts. But like 3D printing is actually innovative. Like yeah, you can continue.
Yeah, it just kind of going off of what you said, it falls into the category of additive manufacturing, where you're
Yeah,
putting something together, um, and it really is innovative. I think because it's also considered rapid prototyping,
yeah,
so it really speeds up the process of making something new, and it absolutely is the manifestation of thinking of something and really having nothing but an idea and turning it into a physical object you can hold in your hand. And I think that's the coolest thing.
yeah,
Um, but for me, it came out of it all goes back to the lightsabers again, because the first few lightsabers I made were not from 3D printed parts, but they were from pipes or pieces of wood, found objects, just pieces of plastic I had. And I loved that because it gave certain pieces like a new purpose, right? Like I could kind of recycle and reuse something. But there was one I made that it was based off of Captain Marvel, so I kind of brought the whole Star Wars and Marvel interests and put them together. And I made it one summer. I later posted it on TikTok, and it did pretty well on TikTok. It got gosh, I think it's at over 200,000 views. And it had several
okay,
comments for people that actually wanted one. Like they were like, I mean, there were some people that said like, "Oh, I want that," but then there were some people that were very serious about like, "Could you make me one? I will pay for it." Um,
yeah,
and I got enough of those. I think I had about three people that like really seriously very much wanted one, and I was like, "Well, I made this with like found parts, so to reproduce it would kind of be difficult because I would have to like find the pieces again and try to replicate." So I decided that, well, if I can model this in Fusion 360, and then if I get a printer and try to figure out how to print the parts, then I can just print 3 copies of this to make for these
yeah,
people. And that's exactly what I did. I started learning Fusion 360 just by watching videos on YouTube. I didn't
yeah.
pay
The
for any
donut thing,
courses.
but I guess it's for Blender.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so yeah, I kind of just figured that out as I went on. I think I just had a lot of confidence in my willingness to try and fail, because I think back, I'm trying to remember like what was my whole mindset around 3D printing now, and I can see myself being very apprehensive about it, but I went for it. I ordered a printer, um, and just kind of went for it, and I figured it out one summer. I was able to get to a point where I knew how to model in Fusion well enough and get it to the printer well enough that by the end of the summer, I had 3 lightsabers that I was able to sand, paint, put together, and ship out to people.
Yeah,
So yeah, it all started with the lightsabers. I've printed several other things since then, but it's mostly been around the lightsabers.
yeah. You must have also printed Benchy, the little boat.
Oh, it's funny. I've never printed a Benchy. It's kind of like the standard thing. It's kind of like for the
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
beginning. It's like the
yeah,
hello world of 3D printing, but I've never done it.
yeah. You should definitely do it because I think
Hmm.
people might kill you for it.
Yeah, I'm a imposter 3D printer because I haven't printed Benchy.
Yeah, because like I recently saw chocolate 3D printing.
Oh yeah. Hmm.
So like it was very new for me. Like clay is another thing. Like it's easier, but
Hmm.
chocolate it's very difficult about the temperatures and viscosities and like,
Yeah.
and then to create a benchy, like it was pretty wild for me.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Let's get on to the calendars behind you. What
Yeah.
was the idea?
Yeah. So
Is
these,
it related to the fact around the weeks of your life thing?
not exactly, but I have thought about that. I've thought about that too. I guess it is kind of the same idea, but just scaled down to a year. I
Okay.
originally got these calendars just as an office decoration for my last job. And what I would do is I would just display one at a time, just depending on which month it was. But the reason I put these up recently, just within the last few days, was I so like part of my story is that I left my full-time job working in healthcare software back in March, and I left that
Okay.
to go back to school and get a master's degree. And right before that graduate program started, the costs changed, and I decided I wasn't going to be able to borrow enough money to start the program. So I had to defer my admission, and that's why I'm like, well, I might still start next year, or I might go to a different school. But I decided, like, okay, I spent several months, like from March to August, like preparing for all these big transitions, these big life changes. And I wanted to make sure that my next year was very intentional, making sure I'm really tracking what my goals are so that, okay, one more year passes. Have I achieved what I want to achieve? And am I like prepared for this next step, whether it's just a different job or whether it's re entering an academic program? I just wanted to be really intentional about how I spend my time because, we go back to the creative process. I have ideas all the time. And
Yeah,
sometimes I'll have
that's the
an
curse
idea.
of creativity.
Yeah. Um, Sometimes 6 months will go by and I'm like, oh, yeah, I had that idea a long time ago and I never did anything with it. So this is kind of an effort to remind myself of like, oh, yeah, there's that thing you want to work on. So, like, I'll put a sticky note up for like, okay,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
can look at it every day and say, like, okay, there's that thing that I want to make sure I do. Um, and it's kind of just that first step of like keeping my goals present in my head. It doesn't really get to the next step is creating actionable tasks out of it, but
Yeah.
I wanted to have one big view of the year where I could write down my projects and ideas on sticky notes and put them somewhere on the calendar. But it's also a really nice display piece. I kind of wanted my background to be a bit of a studio. And
Yeah.
with all the different colors, I think it looks pretty cool. Maybe I could try to show the whole thing there. There we go.
Yeah, it does. I saw your stories also.
Yep. So, yeah.
It is basically for idea remembering, or
Hmm.
like you plan accordingly and also write on it or stuff.
Yeah, it's mainly just that first basic stage of, okay, here's an idea and here's kind of when I want it done. I use some other like task management systems on the computer to kind of like break a project down into its pieces
Okay.
and kind of figure out like when exactly I do something.
I also do this stuff, but I think I always do it offline. I
Mm.
get my pen and paper and write stuff.
Hmm.
Also like the thing you are doing, I also do it, but in a different and a scattered manner because I'll wait a second. Um, can you see this calendar? One sec.
It's a little bit small. Let me. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, so basically, I printed this calendar, and every time of the day, I get like how my year will be. So mark the festivals, the exams which I'll have, the movies which will be coming.
Hmm.
It's very zoomed out planning, but I also sometimes make a calendar myself because it's very easy on pen and paper, and like mark individual dates. And then I have third thing which I plan sometimes every hour of a day.
Oh,
So
okay.
like to be productive. So
Hmm.
like I recently started doing this. I had to schedule events. So I thought of using Calendarly. It's an app
Mm.
for like scheduling stuff,
Yeah.
but like I prefer doing it with hand, and that's why sometimes I like uh send the link late. So that's our sorts.
Okay.
And so like I also do this planning, but it's scattered and like it has various levels to it. So like I get
I would
you.
say I would get that too because I feel scattered in my practice of it because I've just started realizing that, oh, I actually want to get more to like a written format and stop trying to do everything digitally.
Yeah,
I have another project that I'm going to try to finish today where I'm trying to put like a big roll of paper on the wall just so I can like have freedom to scribble and draw like whatever because I'm
yeah.
starting to feel restricted in my thinking and my
You
ideas when
can
I'm
do
trying to
a
do it.
whiteboard, but I guess it will be erased. So like
Yeah,
brown paper will be a good option.
yeah, that's why I went for that because I was like, well, if I draw some like really cool blueprints for a project, it'd be cool to be able to keep that and just kind of like cut the paper off.
Yeah, it's interesting idea. I also saw it working in some videos on YouTube.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, and coming back to the creative part, I think I am also very creative, and the way I have inculcated is that in the year of 2020 February around, I saw a bucket list TED talk. It's
Hmm.
very famous. So like I got to know the concept of bucket list. I just changed it, and like every wild idea I have, I just write it in it. And I
Oh, nice.
have promised myself to like someday I will complete it.
Yeah.
And if not, like if I am 50 or 60, I'll write a book on these ideas and what it meant to me for someone else to like complete it.
Hmm.
So as I then have ideas as frequent as 5 in a day, and like uh, as less as like 4 to 5 in 6 months. And I
Okay.
write every one of them either in the book or like digitally, because digitally is much better.
Hmm.
And after a while, when I see them, most of them are achieved. So like it's a pat on my back also.
So I'm curious, how do you get from going from like an idea that you write in your bucket list to actually marking one off and getting it done?
Some of it are in a very distinct future, and some of it are like just need a 1 second decision of sorts.
Hmm.
And some I write doubt in brackets if I
Hmm.
do think I'm a changed person and I don't need to do that. So and some ideas are also think are implemented by other people. So like it was in 2020 I was basically giving exams, and I had my Kindle with me, the Amazon one.
Hmm.
So I just thought of combining e-ink display with an A4 sheet of sorts,
Hmm.
and like we use a board with a clip on it to like keep hold of our exam sheets and exams. So like I combined it with that too. So it was sort
Hmm.
of a cheating device, but if you rip apart the cheating part, it was kind of a Kindle e-ink tablet of sorts.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. Huh.
Yeah, and recently there was a company who started doing this. Its name was Remarkable,
I
and I
have.
guess
I have Remarkable's device.
Wow, what a coincidence.
Yep. I started using it several years ago. I don't use it too much anymore, but that's
Yeah, so I was like, thank God I don't need to do it. But
uh-huh.
like it was really interesting how things planned out. So like I have many crazy ideas also. Like someday I'll do skydiving,
Mm,
and the the way I entertain an idea is that I make it 10 times more ambitious.
mm.
So if I thought of like doing skydiving, I multiplied by 10, and like now I have to do I have to get an license for skydiving, because then you have to do like 100 plus skydiving attempts and then you get it.
Okay.
So like they say if you aim for the stars and you miss it, you will
Oh,
reach to the aim to the moon and reach to the stars.
yes. I know
it
what you
it is
mean. Okay.
practically not possible because of scientific reasons, but like
Yeah.
it's a interesting theory. And
Yeah.
then even if it's 10% achieved, like it will be an achievement.
Hmm.
so
Absolutely.
so till right now I have forgotten to count them, but I think there are close to 800 ideas.
Wow. That's a big list. Okay.
Yeah, and being a journalist, like I have interest in many topics. They do cover vast topics.
Yeah, I'm sure. So does it ever, when you kind of multiply that goal by 10, does that ever make it more difficult for you? Or does it make it seem more daunting of a task?
It does seem impossible, but I think if I'll do it, it will be 10 times more awesome.
That's true. Yeah.
So basically, if you prioritize like skydiving thing,
Hmm.
you do prioritize it and do get a license of sorts. Like it will be a big achievement because you have done this and invested in this. So like basically, we are on the earth for experiences in
Right.
a nutshell. So that's why I entertain them.
Okay.
So like one should at least make a bucket list of things you want to do in your life and make them creative.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think that's
So yeah,
I think it's important to have that as kind of kind of a guide or almost as like a north star. And I think that's really what I wanted to achieve with my calendar walls. I wanted it to be, here's a reminder of the things you want to do, so
yeah.
kind of keep that direction.
Do you want to share some of your ideas?
Sure. I guess I can share the next one that I'm working on.
Okay.
Um, to no surprise, it is another lightsaber. And
Does
it
it
is
actually shoots lasers now?
it will once I get it done. But it is another kind of combination of some of the like pop culture themes. So,
Okay.
um, are you familiar with the Tron franchise?
Yeah.
So, my one of my friends is hosting a Tron themed party next month, and
Okay.
he was asking me because he wanted to make some costumes that used electroluminescent wire. So it's essentially just like glowing wire.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely fits that aesthetic of Tron, where it's like everything's really dark, but you have little bits of light that are things that are glowing. And in Tron, you also have these identity discs. It's basically just like
Yeah. I remember the movie.
you know what it is, yeah.
Yeah.
And in Star Wars, there's a lightsaber that kind of looks like that disc too, where it's like it's still a cylindrical handle, but it has like the circle around where you'd hold it on your hand. So
Okay.
I told my friend that I would try to make a lightsaber that's Tron themed and kind of combines the identity disc with like that lightsaber. And I want it to like kind of have lights on the handle, like something in Tron would, but then obviously it'll still have like the lightsaber blade. Um, so yeah, that's the next thing that I'm trying to get cracking on. I wanted to be able to draw out my designs on the brown paper like blueprints, so that's why I'm getting that put up today, and then I'll immediately be working on that lightsaber next.
Yeah, I personally don't like draw my designs because my drawing is a bit wonky.
Uh-huh.
Because like if I want a straight line, it will be wobbly.
Yeah,
So
yeah, me
it
too.
won't be as aesthetic as the Vinci's like diary. So like it's
Uh-huh.
a no for me right now. I rather
Yeah.
write it in English because I also write sometimes too.
Okay. So you liked when you have an idea, you would actually just want to like write out the details of it instead of
Um,
drawings.
if I have time, will write it. But if
Hmm.
I don't have time, I will only write the words which are important to it and through which I can create my idea. Because there are, I guess, 1 to 2% of ideas which I don't remember what was they about.
Mm. Yeah, that's fair. That can happen sometimes.
Yeah. Uh, tell me about this thing you started, the juice box, I guess.
Yeah, so another one of my kind of creative type projects was a podcast that I started with one of my good friends from college. We started it back at the end of 2021, and we did about 6 episodes from 2021 to 2022. And
Okay.
our whole goal was to just make a podcast for fun. We already liked watching movies together and kind of talking about them afterward, so we decided to just start recording it and put it into a little podcast. Um, we kind of structured it in a way that, so like if we did have an audience, they could listen to like a non-spoiler review of the movie, so they could hear about the movie without having anything ruined. But then if
Okay.
they wanted to learn or like hear more details, or maybe they weren't going to watch the movie, they could listen to our full review. So we kind of had those two sections. Um, so yeah, we did one season of it. That was 6 episodes through 2022, and then I had moved states. I actually moved to Wisconsin from Indiana for a little bit, so we didn't do it for a while. And then I moved back to Indiana this year, and we decided, why don't we just start season two? And that's been really fun because so far, most of my creative projects and ventures have been stuff that I do on my own. So it's really fun to have that podcast that I could do with my friend. Um,
Yeah.
but also in that realm, that's why I was really excited about Build Space, because I got to meet other creative people like you who are working on things. And that was kind of the first time that I really felt like community in a creative space. But anyway, yeah, we started doing season two. Some of the sticky notes that I have up there on the wall are some of our next episodes, because we try to do one every month.
Okay.
Um, we started season two with Deadpool and Wolverine. Entitled it is Deadpool Marvel Jesus,
Yeah.
because that's kind of the claim he makes in the movie. Yeah, it's really fun. It's like, I think we've made it fun because we don't put any pressure on it. It's not like, for us, it's not like our main project that we want to be known for. It's just like kind of a
Yeah.
fun thing for us to do together. But it gives us each that practice that we want. Like, I want to make videos where I show you how I made something. And my friend Michael, who co-hosts the podcast with me, he wants to make like video game streaming videos. So for both of us, we have different kinds of videos we want to make, but because we're making podcasts and we are now doing like a video format for the podcast, just like yours. So we're getting that practice in editing and publishing content. Um, yeah, it's been really fun.
So it is only audio or audio video both?
Our first season was only audio, and then for season two we started doing video.
Okay. That's cool because I did video audio because Like I never listened to the only audio ones personally.
Hmm. Yeah.
So like it won't resonate to me, and I think if you are uh, doing it, you should do it video. You just have to like maybe there is a thing, because if you do only audio, you both can be online, and in
Hmm.
video you have to. It's better to do it in person.
Yeah. Hmm.
But I guess I'm all right for right now.
Yeah. That is one good thing. Like we've been able to do it in person. Um, we thought about trying to do virtual when I had moved, but now that I'm back in the area, it just makes sense to get, because like we'll go to the movie theater together and then we'll record it right after. So like we're already together in the same room.
Okay.
But it's yeah, I think it's been more fun to make the video, and then like once you edit the video, you kind of get the audio for free because you've edited the
Yeah.
video. You can just take the audio file from that. So you
Yes.
get to publish the video and the audio at the same time.
Yeah, I get you. So tell me, how is uh he Marvel Jesus? Because I personally think if he is used right, he can be, because he did do a lot of new stuff which
Hmm.
Marvel like hesitated to do it for a long time, and they may be striking the right chords right now, and we just have to see like how it will pan out in the future. And like because they have also bifurcated their TV series and animated series from the movies, so I guess they are in the right direction, but who knows? The past after the end game, it has been terrible. Except
Yeah.
a few good shows.
Well, as I think my answer changed a little bit as you said that, because I think originally I didn't really understand what they were trying to do with the whole Marvel Jesus thing, because like in the plot of the movie, and I think I can say this without spoiling anything, but
No, you
they
can spoil.
okay.
No issues.
It's been long enough, yeah. uh, they he had this whole idea of like, okay, I'm going to be Marvel Jesus, but then he didn't really, in my opinion, didn't really save anything in terms of like the Marvel universe. Like, I didn't really understand the whole like problem and solution part of the plot. Um,
I
and
guess
I could be wrong
it
on that,
was
but
for us. It was again fourth dimensional breaking,
yes,
because he wanted to save it for us, not in the movie.
yeah, I
So
think that's the
it may have
distinction that
worked.
I missed. Yep,
Yeah.
I agree. I think it is more he wasn't saving, within the plot of the movie. He was saving like the franchise, the cinematic universe.
Yeah.
And I that part I can agree more with, because it's like, yeah, they're
Yeah,
bringing back
because
those old characters.
after She-Hulk, like the robot thing they did, it was
Yeah.
a very meta,
Hmm.
and uh, they did do a lot of things right, and I think the uh, Deadpool and Wolverine team up was hell a lot of better from the Spider-Man thing they did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because honestly, they only sold that movie on the basis uh, that all of the three Spider-Man came together, and like the whole goal of the movie is for to bring them together, and in
Right.
this it was the starting point,
Yeah.
and then they did create a good script, and like using Blake and other actors which we didn't know about, and like the plot points and the all of the 10x fourth wall breakings, and
Mhm.
using the curse word a lot. Like I guess it has the most of the telly right now in Marvel
Yeah.
movies.
Hmm.
So he was in kind Marvel Jesus.
Yep. Yeah. I think I can agree with that more.
Yeah. So which movie is, I guess, Fantastic Four, right? Next.
Well, Uh, well, next for Marvel is actually Agatha All Along, which is like a 9 episode series that'll be on
I
Disney
guess mid
Plus.
September, right? On Disney Plus.
Yes, I think next. Ooh, is it the 18th? I think it comes out. So yeah, like next Wednesday, the first episode, first 2 episodes
Yeah,
air.
yeah, yeah. Maybe next 18.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't really like the idea of using witches in Marvel, but
Mm,
they have creative freedom. We'll
yeah.
see how they will do.
Yep.
So I guess we will end now.
Okay.
It
Yeah.
was very good talking to you.
Yeah. It's great talking to you too.
Yeah, I guess I will just ask ending questions like,
Hmm.
for example, what one advice will you give for your uh 18-year-old yourself?
Or wait, sorry, run that by me again.
What advice will you
Ah,
give to an 18-year-old Duncan?
yeah. Um, I would say, just based on what's really present for me right now, is really think about what's important to you and what you want to go for and what you want to do with your life, and focus on those things. Make sure that your everyday actions lead you toward those big moments, those big life milestones. It is kind of the same mindset of the bucket list. It's having the bucket list and making sure that you're actually taking the actions to get there. Because now that I'm so centered on like the making, being a maker, and being a climate action engineer, I feel like some of those first years of my early 20s, I didn't really focus on that very much. And now I'm realizing it like, oh, it's okay to get started now that I'm, 26, 27, but it would have been great to start younger. So yeah, I would say decide on what those big moments are, and it's okay if they change. They don't have to be set in stone forever. But decide what those moments are, figure out what the daily actions are to get you there, and just really stay focused on your path.
Yeah, I guess that's really a personal one for you. But yeah, it may help to someone if they are actually looking for advice.
Hmm.
Next question, I guess it will be, since you don't know Hindi,
Hmm.
what's the one thing you will like to get translated and learn it in Hindi? I'll do it for.
Oh, so like you'll translate something for me?
Yeah, and like
Hmm.
you can learn it to speak.
Ooh, that's a cool question. Hmm,
It should be short, I guess,
something short.
4 or 5 words or so.
Um, I guess just have a nice day.
Uh, I guess it will be अच्छा दिन आपको.
Achadan apko.
Yeah. Acha is basically good. Din is basically day. And aapko is basically to you.
Achadan apko. Achadan apko.
Yeah, I guess you nailed it.
Close, close enough. That's
Yeah.
cool. I really like that question because I'm interested in language too. I've learned Spanish. I learned Norwegian up to my trip to Norway. So
Okay.
I appreciate that. That's cool to learn that.
Yeah, I guess maybe if you do get interested in Hindi, we can
Hmm.
do it an episode in Hindi also.
That'd be really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, if you are up for it.
Yeah. Cool.
So cool, man. Hope you do actually make uh, a better version of the like the lightsaber.
The self assembling. Yep.
Yeah, and you can shoot actual lasers out of it. It will
Yep.
be cool because I think light actually don't behave like that
No.
with the physics we have. But yeah, it
Hmm.
will be fun to like operate and get to know how it works because science is the truth, etc.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I guess we can end it. Any remarks you wanna give? Any questions you wanna ask me?
I don't think so. Just this is really fun. Thank you so much for having me on, and
Yeah, it was my pleasure.
yeah, keep an eye out on Port Dunco. I'll be posting my projects and my progress as I work on things, whether it's a daily 1 day build or a bigger project like my self-assembly lightsaber or the Tron lightsaber.
Yeah, I may have a idea or two about the gear stuff.
Okay.
Because like it can work if you like align gears here and like uh, make a spike on it, and it will be like 2D in this dimension, and
Hmm.
like it can flip and you can like get a magnet attached to your uh, part and on the spike itself, and like you will place the your parts on the table, and like you will flip it and like it will get attached and you can give it back, and you can hide the gears itself, and like you can
Hmm.
click a button and like it will self assemble. So like if you get my point, I'll
Okay.
just something like
This is where drawings help me because like I don't know if I fully understand what you're going
yeah,
for,
yeah, 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 I get
because like the locking part that you described is kind of different, but I think for the most part that sounds pretty close to
locking
kind of
part
what
or
I.
flipping part.
Oh, sorry, flipping part. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
because I guess
Yeah.
if they
Always.
are in two dimensional they can be flipped, but yeah,
Yeah.
90 degree.
Hmm.
Yeah, we can chat on it if you find it interesting.
Definitely.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool, man.
All
It
right.
was really fun talking with you. I'll stop the recording.
All right.